Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Book Club with Kaiden Kelly, a podcast where we do a whole bunch of different stuff these days. And these days, we're covering a lot of my schooling content, because I don't have a lot of time to read my personal stuff anymore. And it's been 2 weeks since I was here. So I wanna jump right into it, but first I gotta say, you know what I gotta say. If you want to get more of my content, which is mediocre at best, 3.9 stars on Spotify, if that gives you any idea, go to my blog, kaidenkellysblog.wordpress.com, and you'll find links to my YouTube and Facebook and Twitch and Instagram and TikTok, where I've got a bunch of videos, older videos posted, because I don't do a lot of posting. I don't have a team. It's just me, baby. One man team. And yeah, out here grinding, out here grinding. But it has been 2 weeks, and I've got an excuse. I've got excuses for you. So 2 weeks ago, we left. It was 2 weeks ago tomorrow. We left for Costa Rica. And we were gone for 7 days and like 7.5 days. We got back really, really late last Tuesday. Late last Tuesday, early Wednesday morning. So I was gone traveling, doing the Costa Rica thing with some friends. And I got engaged. I got engaged in Costa Rica. Not to a Costa Rican, but to my lovely partner. And we're so excited. I'm so excited. And we have no plans set in stone right now, but we're so excited. And that's what I've been doing, man. That's what I've been doing for a week. Getting fucking engaged and going to Costa Rica. And then all the time before the trip and since has been catching up on work and school. So I've been especially strapped for time, because I also want to go to Costa Rica and enjoy time with my friends, without being too distracted with work. And I still every morning over there in Costa Rica, I was still doing homework online. I was reading and doing assignments, because I also don't want to fail school. See, I planned this trip before I decided to go back to school. So this really, it's school was getting in the way of the trip, not the other way around. But we pulled it off. I think we pulled it off. Work is still, like, my business is still alive, and I don't have straight Fs in school. So my grades aren't as great as last semester. See, I've definitely bitten off a lot more than I can chew this semester. I was doing 10 credit hours in the last, I was doing three credit hour classes and one credit hour class. So 10 credit hours total. This semester I'm doing 5 3 credit hour classes, and it's been far more difficult to keep up. And what sucks is there's so much awesome material in all of these classes, anthropology, philosophy, and psychology, that I want to read it. I want to be engaged in the content, in the lectures, but dude, motherfuckers got to work too, I got to pay my bills somehow. Good morning, Hey B Moon. What is that What is that emoji you use? Never seen that one before. Is it a sad eyes? Why are you sad, bud? Oh my God, there's a whole bunch of different faces. I've never seen any of those. So that's what we're doing. School is awesome, but work is awesome too. I also love working and having responsibility. People rely on me and following through. That feels good. Doing their moons. You get them for subbing to my channel. Oh, you had someone make your own emotes. That's so awesome. I need that for the podcast, but it would just be straight books. It would be book titles. Did you make them, or did you have someone make them? I love working too. I love being responsible and following through with people that need me, that are counting on me. But what sucks is there's just too much to do. I can't just go to school because I can't pay my bills. And for a long time, I was just working and not getting any formal education. I was actually killing it with the podcast for 2 years until I decided to go back to school. And that's really the podcast has taken the back seat since I started going to school, unfortunately. But a formal education is nice too. It just sucks that there's not enough time, and what takes the most amount of time is work, for sure. I mean, 6 to 8 hours every day, and sometimes on the weekends. So I would love if it would be awesome if all your bills were paid or covered, or you didn't have bills, so you could go to school, so I could wake up and do all of my, and like go all in on my school material, reading the textbooks, watching the lectures, watching the movies, doing the assignments, studying for the tests. And that was, if that was the job, that would be awesome. I love it. I've been doing that shit already. I've been doing it kind of half-assed with with audiobooks while I was doing the podcast. But now that I'm back, not that I'm back, but now that I'm doing school for real, and I've learned how awesome it is to sit down and read books, I'm sad that I can't have everything the way I want it. And isn't everybody? So hopefully, my grades last semester were straight A's, and this semester I'm not doing as great on tests. And I had like 3 tests come up while I was in Costa Rica. It was insane. I had a bunch of assignments due. Like it was 3 or 4 weeks into the semester, and that's when all of the professors assigned the first big assignments and tests. So I was definitely scrambling and guessing and skimming to get a decent grade. And anyway, so now we're back. And what we're going to do with the rest of the podcast today is, because I don't have, let me grab this. I fidget. I totally fidget while I talk. If you haven't figured that out yet, I totally fidget. And now it's this silicone ring that I have that I fidget with. And I'm a fidgeter while I talk, at least on the podcast. So what we're going to do today, and it probably won't take a ton of time, is all the only material I've got is all of the homework that I've done in school for the last 2 weeks. So catching up a little bit, and I'm learning some really, really cool stuff. I mean, it's all still pretty basic. Like, I'm retaking my Psych 1010 because I took it in 2018 or something at Utah State when I didn't care about going to school and getting good grades, and I got like a C-, which they accept, but just looks so bad. And if I'm trying to get a degree in psychology, so part of my ego wants to get that up. So I'm retaking this psych class, and I'm taking 2 philosophy classes and 2 anthropology classes, and it's been awesome. I'm taking a critical thinking philosophy class, and it's been especially difficult because right now it's pretty technical, learning about forms of arguments like modus tollens and modus ponens, and affirming and denying the consequent and the antecedent. So valid arguments, talking about valid arguments in induction and deduction. So it's not a lot. Like last semester I took the intro to psychology course. I'm sorry, intro to philosophy course, and it was all about the big philosophy guys from Socrates to Descartes, and discussing questions like the existence of God and the existence of morals, which huge questions, big ass questions. But it was so entertaining, and I was so captivated. So far, I like where this course is going, but it seems more formal as far as like the actual technique for Arguments, forming and analyzing arguments, whether they're valid, invalid, strong, weak, true, false. The philosophy 3000 class I'm taking is um, ancient and medieval philosophers, and it's been so interesting so far. We've been examining uh, we've been examining philosophers from like the 4000 BC, and the first one that we examined was a lady named Enheduanna, and she was a priestess, I think, in Egypt, and she wrote lots of poems, and some of the earliest written records that we have of anybody come from her, Enheduanna. And they seem more like, they're like stories. They're not. It's not like she was talking about metaphysics, but she makes claims about the nature of reality. She talks about her gods and how they intervene in her life and in everybody's lives. So philosophy is fascinating that way. You can dissect just about any text and examine it. You can and discuss it. So that was this. Okay, so from there we've moved on. Right now we're reading The Republic by Plato, and last week we read book 1, and it's so fun to read about Socrates, and I've never read The Republic, so this is and hey, we're in book club, so we're always reading new books. Sometimes they're textbooks, and sometimes they're ancient books, but sometimes they're modern bestsellers. So we get a whole bunch of variety here. And The Republic by Plato has been so interesting because and especially in the last semester in the Intro to Philosophy course, we read and talked a ton about Socrates and Plato and Aristotle. But now it's awesome to read the actual text of the recordings of Socrates because the way he's popular for many reasons. He's like at the forefront of philosophy for many reasons. And what I learned from this book 1, reading book 1 of The Republic, is book 1 centered around what is justice. That was like the topic of book 1. What is it, and how is it used in our society? And a couple different guys in the text make arguments about what justice is, and Socrates refutes them. And what's fascinating, but what is also could be frustrating if you're looking at it through a certain lens, is Socrates doesn't really provide any answers either, or at all. I shouldn't say either, but at all. A lot of people assert, and this is just what I gather from reading a lot of Socrates, is he's arguing people's worldviews. He's debating them. He's investigating the truthfulness of their claims. He does not out, as far as what I've read, he's not making a lot of assertions. He's not declaring certain things about reality, but rather he's questioning people's reasoning for their conclusions. So one of the guys in book 1 says that that justice is rewards good people and punishes bad people. And Socrates, I don't want to go through the whole argument. I guess I should have. I should have analyzed it the way I do for most of my books, so I have some content. But I guess I'm just gonna go through my fucking course material and maybe inspire some of you who are listening to go to school and study some of these topics. So, the first guy suggests that justice is what rewards good people and punishes bad people. And the second guy suggests that justice is what serves the powerful. And both totally different perspectives of justice, and both powerful in many ways. And Socrates doesn't like say, yeah, I agree with you. He says, how do you get to that conclusion, and where does it stem from? And once they get to a conclusion, then Socrates will then annihilate that conclusion. He'll start to break that conclusion down and say, well, what about these problems? What about this alternative? And so a lot of the dialogue in this book one was one of the characters criticizing Socrates for not proposing any answers. And what's so fascinating is Socrates responds by saying, after all of my philosophy, I don't know anything. I know nothing. So he takes like that Albert Einstein approach, right? The more you learn, the less you know, or something, whatever. Let me see. I don't want to misquote that. What is it? The more you learn, the less you know. Who says that? Yeah, Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein says, and this is from quotable quotes from Goodreads.com. The more I learn, the more I realize how much I don't know. Yeah. Socrates takes the same approach. So this ancient philosophy class has been awesome. Psychology's been cool, but it's actually been really hard. I'm struggling to figure out how the teacher wants us to gather our information, because we're in week 5 now. So the first week was an introduction. The second week was about introduction to psychology. Second week was about research. The third week was about nature versus nurture. And then we took a test. And so much of it seemed so subjective. The test was really tough. The study guide provided a lot of key terms to memorize, but then the questions on the tests weren't about the key terms. They were about like what branch of cognitive psychology does this come from, or how is this anyway. I struggled with the test. I'm struggling to figure out how to study properly for that. But I like it. I emailed a dog trainer yesterday because we're trying to get some puppies. And I emailed the dog trainer to say, and I was like, hey, I want to learn how to raise a dog properly before I get a dog, or I want to at least understand some of the psychology, because I don't want to just get a dog and then fuck up the dog's life. I want to give the dog a really good quality of life, and I also want to do it right from the beginning. And after I sent it, I thought, this is essentially just Psych 101 for dogs. You know, these trainers come into your house, or they take your pet for a few weeks, and they use techniques like positive and negative punishment and reinforcement to train a dog to behave properly. But beyond that too, I don't want to neglect a puppy's or a dog's psychological needs or physical needs just for my sake. I would imagine there is a Maslow's hierarchy of needs for animals too, for dogs specifically, and I don't know what it is. And I wouldn't say that it totally exists. It might not. It's probably much more simple than humans. The dogs and most animals probably just need food and water and shelter and affection, but then also things like exercise and play with other animals, with other dogs. I just want to know what is proper so that when I get a dog, I'll know how to react to certain puppy behaviors so that we don't develop bad habits. We want good habits from the beginning, but I don't know what they are I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And I know I'm thinking way too hard about it. My family's had several dogs over the years, and we've never done anything like this. My family's never done anything like this. My siblings have dogs. They've never done anything like this. I've got friends who have dogs. They've never done anything like this. They'll take them to, like a PetSmart or a Petco and do the courses which is probably similar. But what I want is I want to be trained first. I want to be trained on what to do when your puppy does this, or when they act this way, or when they pee in the carpet, or run away, or like what their needs are, and what kind of things they like, how much exercise they actually need, and what kind of exercise they need, and if some kibble or food is better or worse than others, and should they sleep in the floor of your room? Should they sleep in your bed? Should they sleep in the garage? I just like what's best for their psyche. So I know there's actually probably a degree at Weber State to get puppy training certified, and it's probably in the psychology department. But I'm not doing that. I'm just doing intro to psych right now. And then my other group of courses are anthropology classes. And I kind of jumped the gun last semester because last semester I took Anthro 1200, which was biological anthropology. And this semester I'm taking the intro to anthropology. So, but truly, both classes have been entirely different. Yeah, the intro to anthropology has actually been super cake. The material is like, let me pull up some of the material. Whoops, that was the wrong one. Yeah, section 1, course materials. Intro to cultural anthropology, ethnography, race, ethnicity, linguistics. Yeah, it's been kind of a cakewalk. Ethnography, it's actually has been the biggest focus has been on ethnography, which is studying people in their cultures. Yeah, and I'm going to pull up the definition because I'm going to make sure I got it right. Define ethnography. Scientific description of the customs of individual peoples and cultures. Yeah, it's the branch of anthropology and the systematic study of individual cultures. Ethnography explores cultural phenomena from the point of view of the subject of the study. Yeah, so most of the scientists, the researchers doing this ethnographic work, live in their community. So a lot of what I've read in this and my cultural anthropology class has been of researchers living amongst different tribal people to study them, study how they behave and interact. And I think I've mentioned in previous podcasts, what's so interesting is people behave differently around the world. Even in modern societies, people behave so differently. Like even in Costa Rica was not that different. It was just a different part of the world. It was where we were was pretty westernized. It was pretty, we had a nice hotel with tons of restaurants, transportation. Like it wasn't what I was expecting for Central America, which was poor and unsanitary. It wasn't like, I didn't feel like, and unsafe. I didn't feel like that at all. So, there's parts of the world where people have never seen electricity, and these hunter-gatherer-esque tribes that still exist. Scientists and researchers will go study them. And what I find fascinating, and I think what I'm learning about myself is I'm so fascinated about morality and ethics, because these people, there's one study in particular where, or one paper rather, that I read of a researcher living amongst, and I don't remember the name of the people or the place, but they would fight like crazy and steal. Fighting and stealing wasn't like, people didn't look upon it fondly, but it wasn't punishable. It was like you didn't go to jail. There were no jails. It just was a social thing. People don't like to be stolen from, so they would protect their stuff. But anyway, and tons of adultery. and just like lots of personal beef with people sleeping with their spouses or their siblings, and tons of adultery. And an anthropologist's job is to just observe the tribes and the cultures. They're not there to impose their beliefs. What another really big topic or key word that we're no, hold on, I'm gonna mute this phone call from Nicholasville, Kentucky. I don't know anybody from Nicholasville. Another key term that has been ingrained in my brain from both anthropology classes is the word that now escapes me. It's the word about thinking that your culture is better than another. Ethnocentrism, that's what it is. So it's similar about ethnography with other people's cultures, but centrism to say that we think that ours are better. So an example of ethnocentrism would be for me to say that people living in third world countries are not as happy because they don't have technology like me, and therefore my culture and my community is better than theirs. It's just it's ethnocentric, and it's a poor worldview to determine what's better or worse. But here's what's so interesting is, are there some things that are objectively better or worse? And not objective in the sense that God has ordained these things, but that people's lives are better or worse because of them. And I think one of the studies I referenced in the past was of marriages in India, where parents arrange their child's marriages, and these people marry each other without ever knowing them. It was their parents that do all the investigative work to figure out who their child should marry. And in the West, like, my initial reaction is that would be crazy. I lived with my partner for 3 years. We've lived together for like 2.5 years. We've known each other for 3 years, and we've dated for 3 years. It took us 3 years to get engaged. 3 years, and we probably won't get married for another year or two. But these families in India are getting married after their parents pick their partner and get married without ever knowing. I think I remember reading there's sometimes some brief exchange between the spouse, the oh shit, what's like not the husband and wife, but before that, the both spouses, both of the fiancés. What's the term? The bride and the groom? I don't know. There's some exchange where they can talk and be like, "Oh yeah, we're getting married." You know, it's like the Married at First Sight TV show. It seems wild, but the culture in India is so normal. It's preferred, and I don't know much of the statistics on like divorce rates or quality of life or marital satisfaction, but these people get married like this. And who's to say what's better or worse is what I'm trying to say. Like, who's to say that dating for 3 years is better or preferred than getting married after the first date, or rather, not even a first date, but getting married at your parents' discrepancy after they choose a partner for you. Furthermore, what I'm suggesting is there must be some mechanism or some metric that we can measure to determine it would require examining all cultures and all people, from the richest to the poorest, to determine if there is an objectively better way to go about things. Because maybe in the West we date for several years before we get married, and maybe in India they get married right away without meeting their partner. And maybe there's a bunch of room in between and a bunch of different options. And then you study. They've got to do some crazy long-term studies to figure out how happy all of these relationships are. Follow them, just like the Harvard study of happiness, to where they followed subjects for 80 years, and now they're following the children of the original participants of the study in the Harvard study. You have to do that with married people across all the cultures across the whole world, which is that's a really crazy big undertaking. But that would produce, I would imagine, that would produce some kind of results to determine what marital strategy or engagement strategy serves the people the best. But then you gotta do things like, or maybe you don't have to, but I just had the thought that you would need to take people from India who are prepared to get married according to their cultural standard and impose the Western engagement strategy, where to date for several years. But I don't know, because their attitude would be different going into an untraditional marital strategy, engagement strategy. They would. Does that make sense? I don't think that you can just, like, you can compare apples to oranges, but it would be even more effective, I would imagine, if you take people in the West and have them get married according to the Indian engagement strategy, and vice versa, and then do that for hundreds of participants across hundreds or all of the cultures. Anyway, so anthropology is really interesting to me that way, because the researchers aren't there to impose. They shouldn't be imposing their ethics or morals or standards on any of the people they research. They're simply determining how other people live. And there's that's a big part of the cultural anthropology too. There's lots of different branches of anthropology, like archaeology and not the word is comes to my head is geography, but that's not the right. There's like the one where you study people's influence on the geographical landscape. And I know I'm saying this because I just watched a video and did an assignment on people in the Amazon who they've changed the landscape of the Amazon for hundreds, if not thousands of years. There have been indigenous peoples living in the Amazon, clearing trees and killing and hunting animals and manipulating the landscape for hundreds of years before it was trendy, especially before Brazil has tried to lock down and national park create like no-touch zones for big parts of the Amazon. There's been people influencing the landscape of the Amazon for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And so what's that? I can't remember what that field of research is called, but it exists. There's lots of different ways to study, to be an anthropologist. So what we're like, I mentioned anthropological linguistics. Right now not right now, but there exists researchers who are just studying how people talk and how writing developed and how it's influenced their culture and influences their people. So it would be improper for an anthropological linguistic researcher to go into for me to go to Costa Rica and impose my English language on them when there is a language that exists there, that has existed and serves a purpose, serves a function. That would be ethnocentric. Instead, anthropologists are supposed to go into those towns, go into these places, and if you're a linguist, if you emphasize in the linguistic sector, you would go study how they are, how they talk, what they write, how it influences their culture, their society, their people, their relationships, all of it. Anthropology is fascinating. And what I love about all three of these fields, anthropology, philosophy, and psychology, is it all focuses on how people behave, why they behave that way. And then philosophy really comes in and says, why or what do we do about it, and what's proper and what's real. Because a lot of anthropology discovers that, and you'll find this in psychology too, but what you uncover by through doing anthropological research is lots of functions in societies aren't based in reality. And the number one item in that category is religion. Religion is something that develops independent in most cultures. Belief in some higher power or external life that is uninfluenced by, or rather is independent of our belief or our actions. Like, God exists whether or not we want him to exist, is the point I'm trying to make. Is that true? There's lots of debate for whether that's true, but something like that exists in most cultures. That there is a higher power or multiple higher powers that influence the way we live. And philosophy uncovers like the reality of what we are, of what's, of what this research uncovers. So anthropologists will go in to a society and say, these people believe in X and Y gods because they do X and Y things. And it's not the anthropologist's job to go in there and say your God isn't real, and or my God is real. They're just there to uncover how the function of the God in their society, in their culture. And then it's up to the philosopher really to uncover the truthfulness of the claims made by the people. But it's really, I've been the guy where I've gone into another culture, another part of the world, and imposed my belief on other people, and tried to persuade them tried to persuade them that my worldview is better than theirs, and that they should subscribe to my worldview because of X, Y, and Z reasons. So I've been that guy. I've been the ethnocentric person, but on the religious side in California when I served a Mormon mission. And it's now I'm in a weird place where I'm not pushing religion, but I am challenging people's religious beliefs, religious claims. And wow, my light is flickering. Why is it doing that? It's very distracting. I'm trying to figure out how to balance my passion for uncovering the truthfulness of religion without forcing people to deconstruct from their worldview or their belief. And I know that sounds silly. It might even sound insanely selfish, but it's true. I feel so passionately, like I truly feel there's nothing more important to discuss than the nature of God, the reality of God. More specifically, because this is just the culture that I'm a part of, there's nothing more important to figure out than if Jesus Christ actually resurrected from the dead. And without going too much into that, so let me get a drink real quick. I got 3 drinks. I got my protein drink, I got my cup of tea, and I've got my water and electrolytes. So I'm supposed to be super hydrated, but I've been talking. So let me get a drink real quick. So I'm doing so much uncovering of these claims, and philosophy really examines the truthfulness of a lot of claims, especially religious claims. And I'm so interested in those religious claims, mostly because I bought into them for so long. I bought into one specific claim, which was the Mormon story. I'm fidgeting with the chapstick and I just dropped it. Fuck. Now what else am I going to fidget with? So I grab paper clips. So yeah, I feel disappointed. Like when my mom asks me like, why are you so interested in religion? I kind of feel I feel betrayed by a God that I don't think exists anymore. I put so much trust into and belief into something that I don't believe exists anymore. And that's been a hard feeling for me to navigate. Because, well, for lots of reasons you probably could assume, but God for most people is a huge source of comfort and relief for so many hard things that people experience. Like I remember, I have two really funny stories. They're funny now. They were tragic for me at the time. But when I was a little boy, I remember talking to like my babysitter or something who was much older than me. And he said, I asked him if he played Mario or video games or something. And he said, nah, when you get older, you just don't play very many video games. And I got so sad because I love video games. And so I went to God and I prayed. So I was sobbing. I remember sobbing, saying, just don't let me lose my love for Mario. I want to love Mario as I get older. I don't want to stop playing Mario video games. And hey, maybe there is a God because I still play Mario video games. You know, maybe there is a God. But I remember going to God for comfort, begging and pleading, don't let me lose my love for Mario video games, Nintendo. And then, a few years later, my dog got hit by a car and died. And I remember sobbing in my room again and praying so hard. Just I hope to see my dog again. I hope so badly. Or I can't wait. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I can't wait to see my dog again. And I hope he's in heaven. And I hope I get to heaven. I have to be there. I have to see Max again. God was such a source of comfort for me for so long. And I've had to dramatically alter my worldview since then. Because now, I don't think that I'll see Max again. I still like Mario games, but that could totally change. I don't think that... And the point I'm trying to make is I don't have that source of comfort. It's almost like losing a girlfriend or a trusted confidant. I guess boyfriend, whoever's listening, but it's like losing someone you trust and care about and rely on for hard times, but also love to share good times with. You pray and give so much thanks for. Oh, I'm so grateful that I pass this test or got this job or I'm dating this person or have my health back or recovered from an injury or illness or something. Like so much it's just gone with the change of belief. It's tragic. It is tragic. And people I get why people are bitter from shit like that. I don't know that I've ever really been bitter. To be totally honest, I don't ever remember feeling bitter, but I do feel disappointed. I still feel disappointed because it's a worldview that my family and my friends and my neighbors and everybody in my church all reinforce these beliefs that now I don't believe in, and I'm not disappointed with the people in my life because they're under the same impression that I was, that he's real, that God's real, and that Joseph Smith did the things that he did. He saw God and translated the plates, and the Book of Mormon is true. They believe that still. So I'm not mad at them. They were reinforcing their beliefs. And I was using their testimonies to strengthen and bolster up my own. So leaving religion has been really hard. And philosophy has given me so much more to consider. I still don't have the confidant that I had in God, but now I'm at a place in my life where I feel like I trust myself way more. I have a much better worldview, perspective of life and death and love and hate and feelings and sorrow and joy. My perspective is radically altered. And I sincerely, so what I struggle with is I sincerely believe that my current worldview is better than it was. And what I want to do is be a missionary for my current worldview. I want to go back out there, and part of what I do with the podcast, truthfully, is sharing my worldview. And hopefully it persuades some of you out there to reconsider your worldview if it's different. I'm not at all implying that I have a perfect worldview, but I think I have a better one. I think that my perspective on life is way better than it was. And it allows me to love the people in my life more. It helps me brush hardship off of my shoulder more. Like my stomach, dude, with fucking colitis and recent injuries, I can, like, they still suck. I still get bugged, but I'm not. If I still believed God exists, why I would be like, why the hell do I feel this way? And the typical religious answer is, there's a reason for it. God's giving you a reason for it, or there is a reason that God has for it to make you stronger or more resilient or whatever. Or ultimately, you could say that we don't know the ways of God. We don't know why God does the things he does or allows the things he does. We don't know the mind of God, so therefore don't challenge it. And really, that gives people peace. I can't deny it. I won't deny it. It's true. That gives people peace. But what seems more grounded in reality and is way easier for me to chew is there is no purpose to my suffering or your suffering. We just fucking suffer. But we're doing it together. So we can help each other. We can help each other. We can help alleviate other people's suffering. That's like one of the greatest joys a person can experience, is alleviating another person's suffering. So when I have my stomach issues, I remind myself I'm not entitled to health. And when I'm injured, I don't remind myself I do remind myself I'm not entitled to what's the opposite of injury? Non-injury? I'm not entitled to these things. People get sick. People die. Babies get cancer, man. What's fucking worse than babies getting cancer and dying prematurely or killing their mothers during delivery? I mean, I have a NICU nurse fiance, so it's not like this shit stays on my mind. There's a lot of sucky things that people experience. And it's what's really hard for people to grasp is, yeah, it's hard to accept. It's hard for me to accept sometimes that there is no quote unquote purpose or meaning to our suffering. I think a normal, natural human inclination is to assign meaning to our suffering. It helps us get through it. And that's one of the downsides to an atheistic worldview is there is no underlying purpose to our suffering. And consequently, there's no underlying purpose to our joy. We just don't think about that side as much. At least I don't. When things suck, like when you get sick, I know I'm not alone in this. When I get sick, all I think about is how awesome it was to be healthy. But when I'm healthy, I don't ever think about how bad it sucks to be sick. But you know what? That's a great example of memento mori in practice. When you're healthy, you have to remind yourself how bad it sucks to be sick. And when you're lonely, when you're not lonely, when you feel loved and surrounded by good people, it's so important to remind yourself how bad it sucks to be lonely. And when you're injured, I keep fucking this up. And when you're not injured, it's so important to remind yourself how bad it sucks to be injured. Because what this does is it provides perspective on what your life could be like, might be like, will be like at some point. And to remind yourself that you're not entitled to the health and the wellness and the peace that you are experiencing now. You're not entitled to it. Part of being alive is to feel pain and to be sick. And you can credit that to God. You can give God you could assign the meaning of life to whatever God has bestowed, but I think that's disingenuous to the reality, the true nature of life, of living, is we don't know that there's a God. We don't know that there's not a God. We don't know either way. And so assuming that there is a God and that God's responsible for these things seems less genuous. There's a better word, though. I don't want to say irresponsible, but it seems like you're like pushing off the responsibility onto something else by saying, well, God has a plan. God has a plan, and you'll be able to see your loved ones again. So don't let this bring you down. Like, it sucks when people you love die. That shit sucks. And I'm at a point in my life, I have not had a lot of people in my life die. And for that, I'm very lucky. I'm very grateful. But I remind myself, it will happen. It will happen. It not might happen, it will happen. Or it's either it will happen or I'll be the one to die first. And that's just the truth of it. And that's a hard ass truth to remind yourself and think about. And so lots of people just ignore it and they pretend that those realities don't exist. They brush it off and live their lives. And they should. We're all fucking doing this life alone together. And all we can do is support each other. So I'll conclude with this. What I was trying to say is I have this worldview now about life, and I just sincerely believe that my worldview is better than it was, and is probably better for most people. Not all, but probably better for most people. So how does somebody persuade other people to see the world through a different lens? Not exactly the way I see the world. I know I don't have a perfect worldview. I know I suck at a lot of things. And I got a lot of things wrong. I get a lot of things wrong. And I guess the truth is lots of people aren't interested in changing or altering their worldview. They're not willing to be open-minded to other perspectives. And there's nothing you can do about that. That's an ignorant way to live. And people can live in ignorance if they choose. They can live in that ignorance is bliss mentality. But I'm interested in investigating the nature of reality, the nature of life, what it really is. Not what we want it to be or hope it to be or hope that it's not, but what it actually is. What it actually is for everybody across all cultures. And there's only a few things that we can say with certainty. Things like we all die. And some things feel good and some things feel bad. And that's not even for everybody either. That's not even objective. I guess the biggest one is everybody dies. That's all that we've really figured out. Everybody dies. There's no getting around it. And people might be trying to resist. They might be trying to come up with technology to prevent people from dying. But as far as we know, everybody fucking dies, except maybe Jesus Christ, and we're still investigating that one. If he's back, he's cracked the code. And if he's cracked the code, there's nothing more important in this world to investigate. Okay, that's it. That's where we're going to end this. 54 minutes in, and I feel good. I know we didn't get into a lot of substance really until the end. We started talking like personal philosophy, but might be how these episodes go, man. I can't read a lot of my personal material while I'm going to school. It's just not happening. I'm trying so hard to get these good grades. I want to get the degree and open up some opportunities to not be a carpet cleaner anymore. God damn. If I can get out of it's not that I even hate my job. I just want to do something that I am passionate about. I'm not passionate about cleaning carpets. I'm grateful for the job I have, this business that is functioning. But I would rather put my time in investigating these questions. I mean, there's a reason I don't have a podcast talking about carpet cleaning. There's a reason that we're not talking about scrubbing bush for an hour every week. Because I'm passionate about these other things. I care about these other things. I care about why people behave the way they do, what they believe, their interactions with other people, how they respond to different stimuli, good and bad. If there's a God, if there's not a God, all of that shit. That's what gets my gears going. And if you've been listening since the beginning, you'd know that's what we're here for. So with that, we're going to wrap it up. If you want to join, you can always join live. Hey B Moon was here for a little bit. I don't know if he's still here, but he was here for a little bit. You can join these conversations live on Twitch or YouTube or Facebook by, just joining when we go live. And the best way to do that is to go to my blog, kaidenkellysblog.wordpress.com, and find the Twitch, the YouTube, the Facebook links. Click the link, follow, subscribe, whatever the button is, and even better, turn on your notifications so that when this stream goes live, most of the time it's the podcast, sometimes it's video games, but when it goes live, you can join and share your thoughts, and we can have a conversation or whatever. So with all that being said, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for letting me ramble. If you've listened to this far, you're probably a friend or a relative, and I appreciate you. And if you're not one of those and you've listened to the end, then you are amazing. I feel like sometimes my friends listen to this out of obligation, my family out of obligation, and I'm not going to hate on it, and I appreciate them. But there is no obligation. I hope that this provides some value to your life, because I'm doing this selfishly to help understand where I'm at in my life, the things that I'm learning, to break them down and to understand them better. And I hope